Well, g'day curd nerds. G'day curd nerds. Well, 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 g'day curd nerds and welcome to another Ask the Cheeseman. This is episode 172 and this is where you can ask your home cheese making questions. I'm Gavin Weber and I will hopefully be answering anything that you can throw at me today. We'll see how we go. Lovely to see so many people on the chat. It's great that you're here. Thank you so much for turning up, because without your questions, there wouldn't be a show, obviously. So shout out today to Samwise Weeks, who's a new YouTube member. Thank you, Samwise, and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting the show financially. New mic? No, not that I know of. This is the same mic as before, Lordy. Yeah. So what, does it sound a little bit different? Maybe. I can't tell from this end. Hopefully it sounds okay. Alrighty. So we will have the gallery at 8:30. There are a few pictures that I received this week, not as many as I normally would, but I'll show you at the end of the gallery how to submit them. And the videos this week, sometime this week, I'm making Castile Blue or Castle Blue, depends on how you want to say it. It's a variation of it's a little bit like Castello Blue, so that Dutch style cheese. It's very creamy. It's in a small form, not a large form. So I'll be using camembert molds for that show. So that should be nice and easy. So we'll make a video on how to make that, and there'll be a subsequent taste test about 8 to 10 weeks after that. Good news, the bland, the fermented whey drink that I'm making is starting to clear up now. After it's fermenting, it's still fermenting just a little bit. But yeah, so it's starting to clear. There's a lot of sediment on the bottom, or what they call in the mead making world lees. So yeah, that will be good, I hope, for when it's finished. Apparently it's supposed to taste a little bit like Chardonnay, if that makes sense. I don't know how it's going to taste like Chardonnay, but we'll see. So very cool. Anyway, shout outs today to say g'day. Eduardo's the first one I got on my list here. Shrek fanboy, g'day, how are you? Jordan. We've also got Wendy. G'day, Wendy. We've got Stein, who says it's his favorite TV show. Yeah, thank you, mate. Appreciate it. We've got the lovely Kim, of course, who's moderating today over on YouTube. And we've got, who else? We've got Yaria. We've got Molly. G'day, Molly. Lordy. G'day, mate. Herb. Hello, Herb. Lovely to see you. Manel and Sam. Did I miss anybody? We've got Patricia as well. Judy Mack. We got Manel from way back when. And that's about it. We got, how many people watching? 43, which is absolutely fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Oh, we've got Jim and Joshua as well. Just popped in there at the last moment. So let's get down to business and start answering some questions. Now, who has the first question is the question. Alrighty, so the first question is from Lordy today and says, have you ever thought of a video about how to natural rind age cheese? Not specifically, but if you have a look at the cheeses, let me think. So there was a couple that I did natural rind, and it wasn't painful, but yeah, it was okay. So have a look at the Gruyere video, and you'll see some natural rind development there. And also the other one is the Piora was the other one that I did with natural rind development. And that video does show some of that, but I haven't gone into the details of every week what I do. So yeah, I suppose I could do that. That's not a bad suggestion. Okay, so all right, thank you very much. Let me think. Well, let me just get rid of that. All righty, cool. Herb says, greetings from Houston, everybody. Hope you all are doing good, Gavin and Kim. Yes, we are, mate. Kim has been a little bit fatigued this week. It's frustrating her. But other than that, everything seems to be okay. Manol's got a question and asks, what do you do if the taste of salt decreases in the cheese that is put into the brine solution? What do you do if the taste of salt decrease in the cheese that is put in? Brine it longer. I think that's what you're trying to ask. Yeah, so brine the cheese longer. So it's there's a rule of thumb. It's 1 hour in a saturated brine solution. They say it's 1 hour per 450 grams, but you never. I found that in a book somewhere, so I don't think that's correct. So like I'll make a 1.2 kilo cheese out of 10 liters of milk, and the brine time can be up to 10 to 12 hours. You really want that salt to get in there, because if you don't, then you're going to get bitterness in your cheese, and it's no good for anybody. Hope that answered your question, Manel. There's a question from Sam. Sam says, I followed your feta recipe over the past week. I messed up the pH of the brine and got slimy cheese. I then went back, washed off the slime, fixed the pH. Will the cheese still last? Yeah, it will. There won't be any problems with it once you fix the slimy, the slimy feta. And this usually happens when you just use salt water and don't add that little bit of calcium chloride in, and a little bit of I just put white vinegar. It's only a teaspoon or something in 2 liters of brine, and that adjusts the pH enough that you don't get an ion exchange between the brine and the cheese, and you don't have too many problems at all. Okay, some more people have turned up. Charlie, g'day, Charlie. We've also got Simon, George. Simon's got a question, and he's asked, what is the best way to keep cheese in the fridge or something else? What? What is the best way to keep cheese in the fridge? Usually good cheese should, what I do is I put it in waxed paper. If you're talking about a hard cheese, yeah, definitely put it in waxed paper or vacuum pack it and store it in the fridge, and then pull it out of the bag when you need it. For mold ripened cheeses and blue cheeses, I tend to keep them in their micro perforated wrap, remembering that they don't last very long, because they tend to keep aging in the fridge as well. So they do have a best before date, that's for sure. So things like Camembert, Petite Bries, and blue cheeses and stuff like that, they tend to dry out, or on the other hand, they'll tend to go a lot runnier in the center if there's still some proteolysis action, which is the breakdown of the proteins by the white and blue molds. Okay, there's a question from Molly. Molly says, I've made kefili. It has a blue mold. I've cleaned it with brine. Is that good enough? Yep, indeed. It'll only have blue mold on the outside. If you didn't pierce any holes, then you won't have too many problems with it. So if you just had to wipe the mold, if you had a look at my, I actually did a kefili cheese, and you may have seen the video. I said how to shave a cheese. It was just a bit of tongue in cheek, but definitely how to get the mold off a cheese. So yeah, you shouldn't have too many problems. It may grow back, but you just got to clean it every few days or so. Cavilli's little, it's a bugger for growing mold. It really is. Okay. Who is next? Let's have a look. Here's a question from Yaria. Yaria, yeah, that's how you say it. How do you keep milk the temperature steady when you say to rest it at X temperature for X minutes? Kim, can you pop the video link up for the how to heat your milk? There's a video on that, so that'll help out Yaria. And yeah, there's a few ways to do that, and yeah, you shouldn't have too many problems. G'day to Ambrose over there in Wales. Lovely to see you, mate. JK in the Netherlands. Lovely to see you as well. Let's have a look. Connie, g'day, Connie. And Sam says thanks. All right, so here's a question from JK. How do you age a cheese if you don't have a cheese fridge? Only a normal one. It's difficult because the semi-hard and hard cheeses definitely need a definitely the temperature of around 13 degrees Celsius, which is 55 Fahrenheit. If you're going to age them properly, if you age them in the kitchen fridge at 4 degrees, the bacterial activity is minimal. So at 13, they love it, and the cheese develops properly. Same goes for, say, blue cheeses around 10 to 13 degrees Celsius, which is 50 to 55 Fahrenheit. That's the optimum range for ripening. Any cooler than that, it's really, really slow. But there are some great cheeses that you can make without a cheese fridge. And Kim, can you pop the link up to that? So let me think, what was that called? Beginner's cheeses without a cheese fridge or something like that, and that'll help out JK. There's some really good cheeses that you can make. Off the top of my head, I would say halloumi, feta, bel paese, even Leodama is it's an Alpine style cheese, and it really doesn't need the cheese fridge either. Question from James says, can you brine in a Ziploc bag? Yes, you could. If you've got a Ziploc bag that's big enough, you can put the brine in that and put your cheese in it and then zip it back up again. Hopefully it won't leak. But yeah, you should get pretty decent coverage. If there's if the cheese will float anyway, but being in the Ziploc bag, you should get decent coverage. So yeah, great idea, James. Manel says, can you recommend the book that gives use recipe cheeses with pH? There is a good book, and it's by Giannis Caldwell called Mastering Artisan Cheese Making. Do I have it? Hang on, let me have a quick look at the library. No, it's not there. I must have it in the other room. But yeah, it's by, let me just pull it up on the screen. Let's see if I can find it quickly. Sorry about this. And there's lots of questions coming, which is absolutely fantastic. Let's see if, there we go. We do have a copy in stock. Let me just share my screen because I can. Okay, application window, that one. Alrighty, so let's have a look. Here we go. So this is the book that has a lot of pH. There's a picture there. So Mastering Artisan Cheese Making by Giannis Caldwell. It's a bit on the expensive side. We sell it for $69 Australian, but yeah, it is a good book, and it does have pH levels and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, you could try that out. That should work for you. All right, moving right along. The curry is hot says, how long does store-bought cheese normally last for? Well, usually they have a best before on the cheese itself, usually. But look, it's up to your own personal taste. They tend to dry out a little bit, but what can you do? But yeah, look, they're as good as you think they're good for. Jose says, what's my favorite cheese for mac and cheese? I like a mixture of sharp cheddar gives it some good flavor, as well as a Gruyere style really does give it some great flavor as well. There you go. Let's have a look. Charlie says, Gavin, in your Colby video, you mentioned that it can get bitter over time. Are there other cheeses that do this? Yes, I find that Caerphilly, which is you only eat it 3 weeks, Charlie, it does the same sort of thing. What's going on?
Sorry, Holly's not 100%.
Sorry, we've got some doggo problems. Right, Holly, hang on. Holly, come on, up here. Holly, come on. Come here. Come here, come on. Good girl. Up you get. Oh. Lie down. There you go. Sorry about that, folks. Holly's not feeling very well, so she's come in here. Okay. Yeah, so Charlie, sorry, Caerphilly is the cheese that we have to that you should eat fairly fresh once it's matured. Okay. Question from Daniel says, my last cheese formed a grainy hard curd instead of being soft and stuck together. What do you think I might have done wrong? And follow up to that is possibly overmilling the curd, something to do with acidification. Yeah, so a crumbly cheese is an indication of the acid in the curd is too high. So a few things you can do is use less starter culture. The milk, it depends on the milk what you're using. It's very hard to diagnose this one, actually. Overmilling, not so much. Stirring too much, maybe, yeah. The curd's too small. Let me think. Yeah, so usually it's over stirring the cheese, too much starter culture, too much whey's been expelled from the curd is why it probably didn't stick together. Anyway, that's what I can think of without looking at pictures and all that sort of stuff. Okay. Let me have a look. Next question is from Kevin V. Says, does anybody 3D print cheese making tools? I made a vertical drying rack. It does make little dents in the side of the wheels of the cheese, though. Good question. We're actually, I got some different sorts of molds, and normally I sell the 165 millimeter basket by 140 millimeter basket. And that comes with a follower. I managed to get that from the manufacturer. However, I managed to get some cheese baskets that are about 145, which is about 5 inches across, and they're good for 8-liter batches of cheese. Anyway, it didn't come with a follower, so I asked a friend who had a 3D printer, and he printed me off a whole bunch of prototypes of the pressing plate using food-grade plastic. And yeah, so if you had a look at the Colby video, you would have seen these orange pressing plates, or followers as they're known, and yeah, they were 3D printed. So yeah, you could make certain sort of cheese making instruments, I suppose, out of using 3D printer. So yeah, it's a good idea. Technology is really advancing well. Okay. Question from Doug says, Gavin, hi Gavin, sometimes I see that you remove the stirring spoon and the thermometer. Why is that? Yeah, I do that in cheese making before I add the starter culture, because what happens if you leave them in during that 5 minutes of hydration, the sometimes the starter culture sticks to the spoon, so that's no good. Should be in the milk, not the spoon. So that's the only reason I do that. So moving right along, hope that answered your question, Doug. Lordy says, is there any way to close the holes in the rind after acidification? No, if you've got mechanical holes because you haven't pressed hard enough, then that's it. There's not much you can do about it, mate. Let me think. So to tell the difference between what's a mechanical hole, as in hasn't been pressed tight enough and you got some little air pockets, sorry, or eye development. When eye development happens, you'll find the inside of the eyes will be shiny. So they'll be shiny because that's the CO2 helping to expand those pockets into eyes. Mechanical holes are just the same color as the rest of the cheese. So that's how you can tell the difference between the two. All right. Daniel says, no, he's answering somebody else's question, which is fine. Simon says, apologies, I didn't ask my question well. Growing up in Yorkshire, England, we never put cheese in the fridge. It was stored in a cheese bell. Is that better than a fridge? Depends on your ambient temperature in your country. Here in Australia, if we left the cheese in a cheese bell, then I can tell you this for a fact that it would sweat in summer. So once it gets over about 25 degrees Celsius and it's, say, semi-hard cheese or a hard cheese, it'll sweat fat or oils out of the cheese, and it can tend to make the cheese go rancid. But yes, cheese bells are fine when you're in a cold climate. In a hot climate, no good at all. In fact, I do have a cheese bell. I've never used it for that very reason. Okay. Question from Dan says, Gavin, after 3 weeks, my tilsit has not started to develop a red mold. It does have some blue mold, which I wash off every few days. Any idea what might have gone wrong? The surface may not be suitable for the mold to grow, but seeing you're keeping it fairly moist by the sounds of it, by washing it off, then it should be okay. So what you can do just to get the mold to promote, I remember when I did my tilsit, it took about 6 weeks for you could actually change, if I took photos of it, which I did every week, then you'll notice that there is a slight change in color every week. But what I have done in the past is put some brevibacterial linens into my simple brine solution that I'm going to use as a wash for next time, and then basically just give that another wash, and the mold will grow again on the outside, which is what you want. Do that a couple of times over a period of a week, maybe 2 or 3 times, and then just continue with a normal washing weekly, and you should get your bloom back. The tilsit has a very light, because it's made with a thermophilic culture, the paste is fairly firm anyway, and it takes a while for the brevibacterial linens to soften the paste. So anyway, hope that helps. Connie says, I have to make more Brie, so okay, I am inspired. See you soon. Okay, thanks, Connie. Enjoy. Patricia says, made my first Brie this week. It seems to go so wrong during the make. The Brie surely smelled my fear and mocked me, but it seems to be aging well now. Pics to follow, I promise. Thank you very much, Patricia. I don't know if I can smell your fear, but that's so cool. Ruth is back. Fantastic to see you, Ruth. Hello, Gavin and Kim and World of Curd Nerds. Sorry I'm late. Glad to see everybody. Thank you very much. Okay. And Ruth has made many, many cheeses, as many of you have. Lactic. Here's a question from Lord. He says, lactic cheese forms a weak curd. What cheese is it? Lactic. Cream cheese? I'm trying to do a natural rind. Okay. Not sure then. Question from Molly says, my parmesan from last Saturday has a moon-shaped crack on top. Will it be a problem during curing? Possibly, it could be. You could get a mold infection inside. The curds were too dry. That's why it has cracked. I've seen that in some of the harder cheeses that that I've made myself. It does happen occasionally when I've overstirred it. Really, the stirring times in the recipes are arbitrary. That you should gauge when you should stop stirring the cheese, and you can do that. There's a simple little test. So your cheese has been stirred enough when you can grab a handful of curds, give it a squeeze, and it stays in the ball that you squeezed it. But then when you press it with your thumb, it breaks apart easily. That's true even with curds for Parmesan, which are very fine rice grain size curd cubes, not even cubes by that stage. So yeah, that's what can happen. But what you can do, you could vacuum pack it now, or wax it, and you won't get any issues with the rind. Alrighty. Question from Maka says, hi Gav, I keep getting very small holes through my semi-hard cheeses. They have a horrible smell and the paste is kind of shiny. I'm using store-bought milk. Any suggestions, please? It depends on when you get the small holes. So if it's when you're, say, draining the curd, or the curd's just formed and you get all these little holes and it looks like a sponge, then it's been infected with a thing called coliform, and you've got to throw it away. It's a problem when you're using raw milk. Sometimes it can happen with store-bought milk if the animals have been fed on silage. So that's like a wet food for them, which has been fermented, grass that's been fermented. And this can introduce this coliform. And if the milk hasn't been processed properly, then yeah, you'll get this. If the small holes are during maturation, I can't see why they'd be smelly. It could just be that the starter culture you've used has got some a gas-producing lactic bacteria in it, and that will create small eyes. But other than that, I really can't think of why you've got a problem like the horrible smell and shiny paste. So sorry, I can't help you there. Okay. Question, let's have a look. Here's a question from Martin saying, have you tried salting the milk prior to renneting for camembert style? No, I haven't. When you salt the milk, the curds shrink a lot faster than they normally would if you add the salt, obviously afterwards on the surface of the cheese, which is why the cheesemakers in Normandy, when they make camembert, don't add the salt. So yeah, that's why you don't do that. In some cheeses you do, because let me think. There was a Latin style cheese that I actually added the salt to the milk, but I can't remember off the top of my head what it was. Let's have a look. Question from, what's the best cheese for someone who's lactose intolerant? There are lactose-free cheeses on the market, and you can make lactose-free cheeses. And Kim, if you can find any videos of, I made probably 2 or 3 cheeses that were lactose-free using lactose-free milk, and they worked out okay. They tend to ferment a little bit differently than what cheese with milk with lactose does, but you do get a good result. Let me think. So longer aged cheeses have far less lactose. So harder cheeses, ones that have been aged over 60 days, they tend to have hardly any lactose at all. So you may be tolerant to things like parmesan or romano, any of the alpine style cheeses as well. You shouldn't have too many issues with. Anyway, so that's my cue for the gallery, and let me just bring it up. Let's have a look at screen number 2, and let's have a look. There we go. So today's gallery, the first cheese on the gallery is from Charlie Pace, who lives just up the road from me. So he made some fresh mozzarella, lovely shiny little balls there. And he's put on top of the mozzarella some fresh basil that he's grown in his own garden, some cherry tomatoes that he's grown in his garden, and he's just sprinkled some balsamic vinegar, I think, over the top as a glaze, and a little bit of pepper and salt. So perfect combination there, and I bet it tasted fantastic. Well done, Charlie. This one's from Chris W, and I called him Chris W because I couldn't pronounce Chris's last name. Terribly sorry, Chris. This is he said it's a Parmesan style blue. So he must have inoculated the milk when he was making a Parmesan with Penicillium roqueforti. So this is a top-down view. This is a side view. He said it had fantastic Parmesan style overtones and a little bit of a blue taste too. He's got some great veining there. So really good looking cheese. There are the same, that's the same cheese while it's growing the mold in the maturation box. So fantastic. Well done, Chris. And thank you to Chris and Charlie for sending in your pictures. That is the gallery. There's not too many this week. But if you want to send in stuff for the gallery, hang on, let me just quickly whip up. Where is it? Where is it? Okay, let me just find the YouTubes. So we're on YouTube. This is difficult. Right, so let me just share this screen. That one. Let's go. Rightio. So how to send me pictures. So you go to my channel, you go to the About tab here. Hopefully you can see my little mousey. And you click on About. And then down here, it says details for business inquiries. You got to sign in and you will see an email address. So you have to be signed into your Google account or your YouTube account, whatever you use. And it'll tell you to tick the little box to say you're not a robot. And there'll be an email address. And that is the email address you send the pictures to. So fantastic. Thank you for those who did send a picture in this week. Lordy said he had some, but he forgot. Yeah, absolutely. So easy to send through pictures. So do that. Go to the About tab and shoot them through. That would be fantastic. Okay. Moving right along to the next question. Let me find out. People talking. Let's have a go. Here we go. So Ruth says Gianniclis has a free video on her site about pH. She even invites people to call her with questions. It's an old video. Not sure if she does that now. I think is what you were saying. But yes, if you do go to Gianniclis, she does have how to measure pH and all that sort of stuff, and the pH for certain cheeses. I've seen it. It is a very old video, and she uses a very old pH meter. There are handheld, simpler ones that you don't need to calibrate as much. You still need to do a neutral test to start with and calibrate it slightly. There are some great pH meters from Hannah, is a company. They make some dairy pH meters. They're about $200 Australian, but well worth it. And you can find them worldwide. They're all global companies. So great tip. Thank you, Ruth. Appreciate it. Yeah. Let's have a look. Jose says, does Holly like cheese? She likes to sleep at the moment. Yes, she does like cheese, and so does Hamish, my other dog, who you may see at the end of the show. Good question. A question from Sergio. I think that's how you say it. Hey, can you make cheese with only vinegar and milk? Yes, indeed, you can. It's called sweet ricotta. And Kim, if you can pop up the link to the sweet ricotta in the YouTube chat so everybody can see that. Okay. What is a good, Manel says, what's a good size curd cutter suitable for all recipes? All right, so the strings of the curd cutter should be about 1.25 centimeters or half an inch apart. It's a fairly good. A lot of the recipes that I've made call for that size curd to be cut. So 1.25 centimeters or half an inch. So if you're going to use a curd cutter or make one yourself, make sure the strings or the wires or what have you are that far apart. As far as the size, physical dimensions is up to the type of pot you're using. I've got a couple. Somebody made one for me for my 2-gallon pot, and somebody made one for my, it's a 4-gallon pot, or what's that, 8 liters and 16 liters. Somebody made one that was like half the width, half the diameter. So you can do that. That works. And then you can just spin it around and there's no issues. Okay. Lim says, is mozzarella a good beginner cheese to make? Not so much. Quick mozzarella is difficult, and making traditional style mozzarella with starter cultures is even more difficult. In fact, I made a video about that. So if Kim can find the video for the very recent quick mozzarella that says it's not for beginners, this is not a beginner's cheese, that'll help out Lim. Okay. Let's have a look. Here's a question from Webash15. Kim, Gavin and Kim, thanks for taking the time to answer questions. Have you made cheese from raw milk? How does it differ from pasteurized in taste if you've ever used raw milk cheese? Yes, I've made a few raw milk cheeses, long-aged ones mainly. So I made a Vicino Romano, which is cow's milk Romano, and that was using raw milk. And there's a video on the channel for that if Kim can find it. I also made a Pecorino Romano, which is a sheep's milk Romano, and I used raw milk for that as well. And both those cheeses turned out fantastic. They were beautiful flavored cheeses, complex flavors. And I think they they are different than using milk that's been pasteurized, because the lactic bacteria is still present and hasn't been killed off in the raw milk. So, yes. Okay. There's a question from Diego, and Diego says, hey, Gavin, the wife and I are planning having a wine and cheese date night. That's good. Well done. It's always good to reconnect with your significant other. I've been tasting the cheese this time and not sure what to get. We are drinking Pinot Noir. Me wife loves you. Thanks, mate. So Pinot Noir, a light red. I would go towards probably Alpine style cheeses. What else would a Pinot go with? Yeah, Alpine style cheeses are best. But look, really, you can eat any cheese with any wine. There are purists out there that will change their wine for the different types of cheeses, but just have a balanced cheese platter, honestly. And I did make a cheese platter video on, how to make a decent balanced cheese platter. And I know I'm working you hard today, Kim. So if you can find the cheese platter or cheese plate video, that will help Diego. But yeah, just 4 pieces max. Don't overwhelm the cheese plate, and have different styles of cheese, and that should be fine for you. Okay, I got a question from Brendan. I think it's Brendan. It says, "Hey Gavin, long time watcher. Really want to take the plunge one day in a cheese making. The only whole milk available to me is 3.25 homogenized pasteurized. Am I able to use that for most cheeses?" Yes, you can. In the early days when I first started making cheese, that's all I had. I had standardized milk, and it was homogenized and pasteurized. The curd set was often weak, so make sure you add your calcium chloride, as most recipes of mine state. So check that out. Make sure that you do add the calcium chloride. You may need to wait a little bit longer for curd set to occur. So use the flocculation method. If you have seen some of those recent videos, there's a video on flocculation where I explain all that, especially when using homogenized and pasteurized milk. It'll taste good, but it won't taste amazing unless you use either raw milk or pasteurized unhomogenized milk, because the fat globules have been smashed up in homogenized milk and don't really do a lot for the cheese. So yeah, you can do it, no problems at all, but you won't have the totally amazing cheese that you think you're going to have. Okay. Question from Anthony says, "That triple pepper jack looked amazing and so hot. Would you make a single pepper version of it?" Yeah, you can. Just don't add in the don't add the chilies in the middle. And I have made a single version of that, and it's called jalapeno cheddar, which Kimmy, if you can find the video for the jalapeno cheddar style cheddar, then that's like single pepper jack, really, because it's got one pepper in it. Okay. So the question from Sergio says, "Hey man, so my question is, can you make mozzarella cheese with only milk and white vinegar?" No, you can't. It is not possible. It won't stretch. It'll just be, like I said, sweet ricotta. Molly keeps asking the same question, which I've already answered. So sorry, Molly. Is a question, or maybe a statement from Lindsay. Thanks, Lindsay. "Hey, Gavin, I'm ripening 15 litres of fresh from the cow milk. It went into my double boiler at 31.5 degrees. Fantastic. I hope that all turns out well for you and makes an amazing cheese." Martin said, "Late to the party, but good evening to the Knights of Mesophilia." I love it. Good on you, Martin. You're a classic Martin. All right. Let's have a look. Here's another question. This one's from Von. Von says, "If cheese is waxed, doesn't the wax keep the moisture in? And if so, does it really need to be kept at 86% relative humidity?" It needs to have some humidity, Von, because the microcrystalline waxes that people use, and sometimes people use beeswax as well, when they don't have high humidity, they tend to crack. And when they crack, all sorts of molds and yeast can get in under the wax. And yeah, you won't know until you open it that your cheese is ruined. So yeah, it does pay to have a bit of humidity. In my cheese fridge, it has a constant humidity of about 70%, because there's a big tray of water underneath the freezer section of the cheese fridge that when it turns on and off, the water stays fluid. And that creates the humidity. It's like a big pan of humidity in there for my cheeses. So it keeps the waxed ones anyway okay. I know that if I naturally ripened a cheese in my cheese fridge, just on a pine board, it would get infected by lots of funky molds, because over time there have been lots of moldy cheeses in there. But yes, it's good to have a bit of humidity. You don't need to keep it at the 86 unless you're creating a natural rind. A question from Steve. Steve says, I've had some cultures in the freezer for about 9 months. Will they still be okay? Yes. So culture packets usually last for about 2 years. That's what the manufacturer puts on them. And then if you've kept them in the freezer and you've kept them moisture free by using something like a sterilized jar, then and kept them in there and airtight, then they last even longer. I've used cultures that are over a year, sometimes 2 years past their best before date, and yeah, you don't have too many issues whatsoever. Lim says, hey Gavin, can I put food coloring into milk before making cheese to get fun colors? No. And Lordy has said the food coloring will acidify the milk. Yeah, they are slightly acidic. But what you can add, obviously, is annatto. And annatto is the only thing you should put in your cheese to color it. There are methods to color the cheese after you've formed the curds. So things like sage derby, if you've ever seen that, it's usually a green cheese. And what they've done, they've soaked the curds in sage. But these days, to get the greener color, they actually soak the curds in spinach juice and then put some sage bits in there afterwards. Soak the curds in the spinach juice and sage juice to give it the flavor and color it needs, and then they press it, and you can see a marbled green effect. Very nice indeed. But you do that after the curds have been drained. You don't put it into the milk itself. The only thing you put in the milk itself is annatto. So, hope that helps. Question from Molly again. My Cotswold is vacuum packed, exploded in the bag. Is this because I didn't air dry it long enough? No, because it's off-gassing CO2. That is what happens sometimes when you use, say, a aromatic mesophilic culture, which tends to produce gas. That's okay. Also, if you had some mold on the outside, it will produce some gas as well. Ammonia usually, and that will puff the bag up a little bit. That's fine. Cotswold, which also has chives, onions, onion flakes, and sometimes a little bit of granulated garlic. I've made Cotswold with dried garlic, not fresh garlic, because there's a risk of botulism there. And they tend to off gas as well as your cheese is maturing. So hope that helps, Molly. Question from James says, it is recommended that cultures be kept in the freezer. I have some coming where shipment is delayed. How long can it be in shipment without worry? Okay, so it is recommended that cultures are kept in the freezer for long-term storage, not short-term. Transportation, if you have a look at the data sheet for most data cultures, it says they can be transported at 30 degrees Celsius for 14 days. So if the temperature during transportation is a lot less than that, which tends to be most times, then it'll last a lot longer outside of the fridge, and it will be a viable culture. We ship cultures all over the world. Even the ones we send to Canada and the US, which is probably about as far from Australia as you can get anyway, we find that the cultures survive. People make successful cheeses and have no issues whatsoever, James. Okay. Manuel has a question that says, when you cave Brie cheese or camembert cheeses, they have a bad smell, question mark. Yes, indeed they do. When the white mold starts its breakdown of the proteins from the outside in, when it grows on the outside, it creates what's known as ammonia. Ammonia is a gas, obviously, and it does smell. So that's why when you turn the cheese every week, when you're doing it every few days, it's up to you how vibrant the mold growth is. Then yeah, you'll need to turn it more often. And I actually tip the ripening box upside down to get rid of the ammonia because it's heavier than air. Yeah, and that'll fix your smelly problem. Doug says, I was thinking of making bland. Can you heat the whey up first and then dissolve the honey in it and then put it into the fermenter? Yes, you can. I was doing a bit of a rookie trick there because, yes, you can heat the bland up. But remember, when you heat the whey up, the warmer you make it, the more milk solids will particulate, whatever, will come out of the whey, and the whey will get clearer. So that's why I chose to put mine in at about 30 degrees Celsius. I could have mixed the honey into that whey in the pot first. I didn't. I should have, and then just tip it into the demijohn, and it should be fine. But yeah, you can do that. All righty. Daniel says, thanks for the answer, Gavin. By the way, I got my chucks yesterday, and they haven't felled any trees yet. You're hilarious, mate. Well done. Okay. Lordy says, make fior di latte mozzarella, which I have. There's a video on that. If Kim hasn't already put it up, it's quite nice. Let's have a look. Mr. Paradox says, what's a good substitute for Wensleydale cheese? In what context? For cooking, you could use any English style cheese whatsoever, and it'll taste fine. Okay. Okay, so a question from Yaria says, can we use store-bought or raw milk to make cheese? Correct. Yes, you can. That is correct. What is the main difference in the process? Well, store-bought milk has been pasteurized and standardized, sometimes even homogenized, in fact, most of the time. Pasteurized is heating the milk to kill the pathogens, usually to about 72 degrees Celsius for 15 seconds, and then it's cooled down rapidly to 4 degrees Celsius. And that kills kills all the lactic bacteria and the pathogens within the milk. So you have like a clean slate, a sterile stored milk. Raw milk contains all the flora, the natural bacteria in the environment that it was milked, and forms a more complex cheese. However, there are risks with that. If you store it too long, the raw milk can acidify itself. It can also be contaminated by other pathogens that are not good for you. So when in doubt, pasteurize your milk. Okay. Steve has a question that says, how many times can you use your brine? Also, is it necessary to boil the brine before reusing? Good question. I find that if I'm making, Alpine style cheeses without any Brevibacteria linens, I can use the brine multiple times, and I just boil it in between, and there's no issues. It doesn't smell very bad. However, when I do make some washed rind cheeses, the red mold, I tend that makes the brine stink. And even if you boil it, here's one for everybody. Even when you boil it, I find that it contaminates the next cheese. So I tend to throw away the brine after I've made a washed rind cheese. So, All the others, no problems. However, if you're making lots and lots of washed rind cheeses and that's all you use that brine for, perfect. You're going to get a great smear on the outside of those washed rind cheeses every time because it'll just cross-contaminate all the time. Okay. Let's have a look. Doug says, I started with mozzarella first. Okay, and followed your video and it came out great. Well done. My video obviously works, or the recipe does anyway. Let's have a look. So many repeat questions. I do get to most of them eventually. Hey Gavin, it says, I read today you were watching a documentary that started you on the sustainable path. What was the documentary? Good question. It was An Inconvenient Truth. A lot of shock value there around climate change. And some other good one. Another TV series that I watched that really got me going was It Ain't Easy Being Green. I think it was on the BBC. It was done by Dick Strawbridge and his family, his original family. He's since moved to France to a chateau and does DIY chateau shows, like doing up a chateau. But he did this original series on the BBC called It Ain't Easy Being Green. And he took this old farmhouse in Cornwall, I think, in the United Kingdom, and converted it into a more sustainable house. And that really helped us figure out the veggie gardens and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, Kim's given me the wind up. There's only 4 minutes to go. Sorry I didn't get to everybody's question. I've got like 20 minutes of questions that I didn't get to. But Kim has put up the links for, where are we? There we are. So merch link is cheesemantv.creator-spring.com, and that will get you to the merch. We'll go to the merch shelf. So cool merch like this lovely cup. There are other cups with other designs, and I don't know if you can see it, certified curd nerd t-shirt. So you can get all your t-shirts. My ebook is also on Spring as well. And if you want to support the show financially, there's the join button down there on YouTube, and you can also go to patreon.com. Okay, so that's it for this week. Oh, we got a friend. Hang on, there's a friend coming. Here he is. Hey. Oh, thanks for the super chat, Steve. Appreciate it. Here's Hamish. Oh, you cheeky little monkey. Come here. Give me a kiss. Meh. Okay. There's Hamish. He's growing really big. If you want to check out Hamish and what he's doing, pop over to the... Oh, hang on. Let me just kill that before somebody has... Oh, all right. You get down. Oh. Check out my vlog channel. It's just Gavin Weber Vlogs. And do I have a picture of it? I probably do. Let me just find it. Here it is. I will just share my screen and show the good people the vlog channel. Here it is. And yeah, so you can go over to Gavin Weber Vlogs. We upload videos once a week. And some of them are quite popular. Like this one here, the backyard office studio build, 167,000 views. People seem to like that. But yeah, there's lots of stuff around sustainable living. And we do a live stream every Thursday evening, Australian time. And we talk about anything. It's called Ask Me Anything. It's about our lifestyle, basically. So yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic. So, yeah, Kim's got the vlog link. You can't click on it on the screen, but there it is there. But yeah, you can see a picture of it. Just search for Gavin Weber Vlogs. It's very cool. And there's another super chat just at the last minute. And this is from Dar Baby. Says $2 US. I saw huge honkers and my thing goes boing. Rightio, whatever. And just for Steve says, he says, thanks, Gav. Love. It's Not Easy Being Green. Yeah, it was a great show. And I think you can get it on DVD. Yeah, I think we had it on DVD. I'm not sure. Don't know if you can even get it anymore. But it was a great show and showed so much sustainable lifestyle. Anyway, enough for that. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Without them, there wouldn't be a show, basically. So thank you so much. I've enjoyed answering them this week, as I do every week. So I will see you next week, same time. In fact, let me think. Oh, we go to daylight savings next week. So just check when I put the video, when I schedule the video, you will see what time it is in your country. We go back an hour in autumn. It's autumn for us here in the Southern Hemisphere. So we go back an hour. So it may be good for you, depending on the time difference. So thanks very much, everybody. See you next time.